Welcome to Roohide University for all your performance horse tack tips and more. Hey guys, Brian here with Roohide Saddlery, and in today's Roohide University video, I'm going to be showing you how to use our mold kit and why you would do so. In your mold kit, it's going to come with a plastic tray and the plastic mold to mold over your horse's back, along with some instructions. Now, this is not rocket science. Do not freak out when you get it. It's a pretty simple process. What you're going to need is a hot water source. I use 2 electric hot water kettles. You're going to need either a knife or a spatula, something to be able to pull the mold out once the water's in there, and preferably a partner to help work on the other side of the horse. So we'll take a different view here and show you what we do next. So as your guys' water is heating up, I want you to spend this time to kind of get familiar with your horse and get an idea of where your mold's going to be going. So first thing to do is find the back of the scapula, the back of the shoulder blade. So on this horse, I'm going to hunt for it and feel and find. So I found the back of the scapula right here. So if it's not very obvious, for me on this horse, it's pretty pronounced. But let's say on a horse where it doesn't have a very pronounced shoulder blade or scapula, you can actually take some big sidewalk chalk or some electrical tape and tape it off so you can find that. When you go to place your mold is actually going to come forward at least 2 inches from the back of the shoulder blade. That way I can see how much slope your horse has got right off that shoulder, okay? So once you have that spot found on both sides, you're going to know where the front of the mold needs to go to. Okay, now my water is boiled and hot and ready to go. So all I'm going to do is add the water right over my mold into that tray. So depending on outside temperature, that'll make it vary how long it's going to take for it to heat up. So down here in Southern California, it's pretty warm. Shouldn't take too long. Sometimes when I do these up in like Washington or Oregon and cold areas, it does take a little bit longer. So I'm going to periodically check it, make sure it's pliable all the way through. Sometimes I can flip it, rotate it the other way for a second. Okay, that's feeling and looking pretty good. I'm going to take it now directly over to my horse. Once again, using that center line just as a guide to help me find the spine if I don't have someone on the other side. So now my shoulder blade is there. I'm forward of that about, like I said, 2 inches. And generally, if you've got a horse that's a little antsy or wants to be all over the place, this tends to relax them quite a bit. They think they're getting a bit of a heat massage. So, like I said, with warmer temperatures like we have here, it doesn't take very long for it to get hot in the tray, but the cooling process itself might take a little longer, okay? So this is where you're just going to use some common sense as to when it's hard enough. You're just going to be constantly checking it and massaging it lightly down. So one of the issues someone may run into is the mold not getting hot enough. And if the mold's not hot enough, it almost sets up like a teepee in the center. It's got a point to it, a lot of ridges, and it gets a little sloppier. You're having to force it down. If you're doing that, the mold is not hot enough. Sometimes people freak out maybe about a corner or something flipping up. Don't worry about that too much, or don't worry about the center line maybe being a little squiggly. The center line was just a guide for you guys. So we'll come back here in a couple minutes once this is hardened up. So now my mold is starting to harden and set up. One thing I'd like you guys to do for me with a permanent marker is go ahead and mark out the back of the scapula right there, or the back of the shoulder blade, so it's really easy for me to find when we start to drop our trees on and figure out what we're going to need to do for fit. We'll catch up here again shortly once it's completely hardened. Alrighty, so my mold is now set up and hardened, so it's safe for me to be able to pull it off the horse's back. And I'm going to want you guys to get a couple measurements here, okay? There's some little marks I've made on the mold where you're going to measure from here to here and from there to there. The only reason we get these measurements is in case during shipping somehow it gets beat up, I want to make sure that when I get it back here to my place that the dimensions are still the same, okay? So lift that off. I can rest that right over my leg, get my measurements. So my measurement from there to there, write that on, and we'll be good to go. When you guys go to ship the mold back to us, just make sure it's in a box big enough for it to fit in, and then you guys can put some, whether it be packing peanuts or newspaper, something around it to be able to protect it and that it won't get beat up on its way back to us. The perks of doing a mold, and why would someone even do this? This takes the guesswork out of it for you, takes the guesswork out of it for me, okay? I'm gonna be able to drop my trees on and find A, my best baseline start, and B, see where I'm gonna have to make some modifications. We'll then build the saddle around that tree, and this mold will go back with you as well. You can periodically drop this mold back on every 6 months, every year, whatever you want. If the mold still fits, we know the saddle's still fitting. Thank you guys for your time. Remember, sit quiet, close, and comfortable with Roohide.